Tuesday forecast calling for areas of fog in the morning, otherwise a sunny and nice day. We'll call it 85 for an afternoon high. Tuesday night, mostly clear and 62, mostly sunny, even warmer on Wednesday, a high of 88. Partly cloudy Wednesday night and 68. By Thursday, about a 50-50 shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, a high in the upper 80s. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in and rumbling with us or YouTubing, whatever it is when you go tubing. T-minus 4 days, and we'll have amplitude and frequency modulation to deal with as well. Don't stand too close to the RF, okay, because it just does something to you. I know a lot of people who have been in this business a long time, and they've been near the RF just a little too long. Lots to go into today. How far, and most of us never have a fixer. Most of us, probably the closest we've ever come. What was the George Clooney movie? Michael Collins, I think, was the name of it, or famously Mr. Wolf from Pulp Fiction. Most of us don't have a fixer for us. Most of us probably couldn't afford a fixer. Maybe you have. 434-882-4217. If you've ever employed a fixer or had a fixer on retainer, you might be able to share some insight. Can we pixelate their voice? They used to do on like 60 Minutes. You know, there's a whistleblower testimony, but the face is all blacked out. This voice sounded like this. If so, let me know if you've ever had a fixer, because as I watch Michael Cohen's testimony, much of it in rerun, because I've been very, very busy during the days, and read his transcripts, I can't shake that feeling I had at the very, very beginning of the whole Stormy Daniels thing, and we're talking like 2 years ago. I said, how does somebody, in a blink of an eye, go from committed fixer who had told everyone that he would take a bullet for Donald Trump? How does all of a sudden he just go like that? Was it the stunning oratory or deals offered by the Federal Bureau of Investigation or the New York District Attorney's Office or anyone like that? Could Donald Trump have certainly, it's conceivable. I think most people are comforting themselves with the idea that Donald Trump just did something so horrifically bad to this guy that he flipped on him. Certainly that makes for much better primetime drama, doesn't it? Or is he taking his role of a fixer very, very, very monastically? I ask you this because nobody else is pointing this out, that if you are a fixer, part of the job, as I understand it, is to do whatever it takes to make sure your client doesn't come out looking bad. Whatever scenario it is that you find or your client finds themselves in, you're not supposed to let it land on your client. And if possible, you want your client to come out looking better at the other end than he did when he went into said whatever scenario it is. So if you've ever had a fixer, certainly you would understand if Michael Cohen, because if you go back through the history of Donald Trump in the public space, well, that's not fair. He's always been in the public space, but the presidential Donald Trump, these allegations continue to come along, and at some point you start feeling like, some of the people who make these scurrilous allegations, like the Steele dossier, need to start having a comeuppance. And it seems like Michael Cohen is like one of those exploding dye bags, the bank bags that if you try to open them without the key, it explodes with blue ink all over the bank robbers. That's the kind of thing I'm feeling watching Michael Cohen's testimony, because whether you like Alvin Bragg or not, he's not this stupid to put Michael Cohen as the cornerstone to the entire case. But there's plenty more. The Downtown Mall, City of Charlottesville, our hometown metropolitan service area, has decided that they need to undertake a major project in which they're going to take their downtown area and completely reimagine it to make it more friendly for visitors and business. Again. Because it was the 70s when they did it the first time. And they actually wound up owning part of a hotel. They own quite a bit of property downtown, most recently big atrium space with some apartments and offices in it that they purchased with money that they laundered through the Charlottesville Housing and Redevelopment Authority so that they could get that in. We're going to get in to that because now they're saying, well, we need to fix up the downtown mall. You mean from the first time you fixed it up, and they need to make it more friendly for visitors and business. You mean like you did the first time you closed Main Street through downtown Charlottesville and bricked it over to make it a pedestrian mall so it would be... I know, the feeling of vertigo can come along sometimes. Just diaphragmatic breathing, I find, helps. In through the nose, out through the mouth, cleansing. Also, a bunch of Buddhist monks addressed school kids in Scottsville. Albemarle County Public Schools hosted these Buddhists who were on a crusade to march across the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast for peace. But one wonders... You tell me at 434-882-4217, another ponderable for you, perhaps to trigger you. If 5 Christians, 5 Lutherans, 5 apostate Jehovah's Witnesses, no, let's go too far. But just let's ponder for a moment if several members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, colloquially, the Mormons. Suppose 5 Mormons are walking across country for peace. Would they be allowed to address the schools? What about 5 rabbis? Certainly, I imagine 5 mullahs might be invited to speak, but would 5 rabbis be allowed to hold a special auditorium session at Albemarle County Schools paid for with your taxes? Or would they be told, no, that's a separation of church and state issues there? Certainly, if 5 Episcopal priests were walking, 5 Catholic bishops. What if 5 Catholic bishops were walking across country for peace? What if classically the opening of everyone's favorite joke, a priest, a rabbi, and a mullah walk into a bar? What if a priest, a rabbi, and a mullah were walking across country and they got to Scottsville? Would Albemarle School say, hey, let's have a special session with these 5 bishops from the Catholic Church? See, this is when equity winds up becoming the point of the spear you wind up getting skewered on. Because it's easy to say, but then when you go ahead and say, oh, isn't it special? We've got a bunch of Buddhists who are going to come here and talk about peace. Okay, that's great. I know a lot of Catholic bishops that would love to come and, whether they're walking across country or not, maybe they're fasting, maybe it's Lent. Maybe it's Yom Kippur, and some 5 rabbis want to come and address the kids at Scottsville schools. One imagines that the separation, and this is one of those moments where you're going to have to hold on, because when that happens, you're going to have to be able to go back and say, hold it. May 21st, 2024, or actually technically May 20th, 2024, didn't you have a bunch of Buddhists here holding a religious auditorium session with the school kids? Seems to be at least a double standard, perhaps triple. It's a 2 for Tuesday, so if everything's a double standard, that makes it quadruple. They finally tugged the Dali off the bridge abutments, and she's back in port now. Oh, I hope there's nothing perishable in all those. And I'm sorry, I have this mind that works this way. As they tugged the Dali back into port, I remembered a couple of things. I remember the front of the Stockholm. Do you remember the Stockholm? Remember where the Stockholm hit the Andrea Doria, a broadside? And the front of the Stockholm was just this mangled mess. And, of course, the Andrea Doria is at the bottom of the Long Island Sound. But as I pulled it away, I was like, oh, that reminds me of the pictures of the Stockholm when they pulled her away from the Andrea Doria. But beyond that, I'm looking at all these shipping crates on the Dali as they tug her back into Baltimore Harbor. And I think, oh, I hope there's no vegetables on that. I hope there's nothing perishable on that. Ooh, you imagine being the poor, ship hand that has to go open those things. Hey, the cabbage that we were shipping, I presume anything that was perishable might have been dealt with while it was there. Who knows? It's a wreck on the side of a bridge, but just these are the thoughts that strike me. Hey, I want to send congratulations. Michael McKee's been on this program in this iteration as well as before, and I remember reaching out to Michael. He runs the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank. And I remember at the beginning of the COVID-mandated lockdowns, the COVID lockdowns that were based on nothing. As a matter of fact, Francis Collins has now admitted back in February. We only just found out about the COVID lockdowns being based on, well, I'd call it bull excrement, but it's actually more like bat excrement. But we were told you were going to get your business shut down if you didn't shut down and send all your employees home. And a lot of employees didn't have money. So the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank became a very big, important thing for me on this program. And we tried to do our best for them. But Michael McKee at the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank has just been feted by Feeding America, the it's a parent organization, kind of a sharing network of food banks across the country, and has just been feted. So I wanted to say congratulations to them. And real quick, before we start getting into the meat and potatoes, Lars Larson is going to be joining us. Lars Larson, host of the eponymous Lars Larson Show. Mary Sandridge from the Alzheimer's Association as well, getting ready to catch us up on some of the things. We want to find out how their pickleball tournament went over the weekend. But if you're basking in the afterglow of this show, either in reruns or in live feed over Rumble and YouTube, it is coming to you through the auspices of an organization called Firefly. Firefly is my internet service provider. I pay them. This isn't a plug or anything like that. I pay for it. As a matter of fact, my neighbors are Central Virginia Electric Cooperative, who started the darn thing. So they have taken it upon themselves to bring broadband to all these places before Mark Warner and Tim Kaine can. Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, if you're just joining us in progress and only pay attention to presidential politics or the Cohen testimonies, are the two U.S. senators from Virginia who continue to tell us, vote for me because I've got a bag of money for broadband. That seems to be at least once every 3 press statements out of Tim Kaine's office is, I've got more money for broadband in your communities. And the counties all line up and hold their hands out and say, please, we'll bring county-provided broadband to people who can't afford broadband otherwise. And like all subsidy programs, just makes broadband more expensive for everybody. I just wanted to say congrats because they now are whipping up through Rappahannock Electric Cooperative more broadband through a commercial sector. And I just feel like every now and then people need to be reminded that the commercial sector can do a lot of this too. This is Joe Thomas. Join us Saturday morning at Gypsy Hill Park for Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Stanton. Gypsy Hill Park, 10 a.m. It's not just Corvettes. Whatever your ride is, whether it's Mopar or a Mustang or even a hot hatchback, something that you drift with, come on down and show it off at Gypsy Hill Park. It's a $10 admission fee for your car. Dash plaques for the first 200 cars that join in on the celebration. There'll be music, food, and a live broadcast from me, Joe Thomas, in the morning. Gypsy Hill Park to kick off the Memorial Day weekend with Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Central Virginia. Join us there at Gypsy Hill Park starting at 10 with Joe Thomas in the morning.
This is the Racing Wire Minute with Brian Belansky.
Larson shines at Indy. That story next.
She can stand, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM.
Kyle Larson is making the month of May at Indy look easy as he gets ready for the Memorial Day double. The multidiscipline star will start fifth in his first Indianapolis 500. Larson clocked a four-lap average of 232.845 miles per hour. Right after qualifying, Larson hopped a chopper to the Indy airport, a plane to North Carolina, and another helicopter to North Wilkesboro Speedway for the All-Star race. He'll make a similar mad dash after the Indy 500 to get to Charlotte for the Coke 600. Larson will be the fifth driver to attempt the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. Scott McLaughlin will start the Indy 500 from the pole.
Your Tuesday forecast calling for areas of fog in the morning, otherwise a sunny and nice day. We'll call it 85 for an afternoon high. Tuesday night, mostly clear and 62, mostly sunny, even warmer on Wednesday, a high of 88. Partly cloudy Wednesday night and 68. By Thursday, about a 50-50 shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, a high in the upper 80s. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning, and coming through your Rumble, your YouTube, T-minus 4 days and counting till there's amplitude and frequency modulation for us to play with again there. So please stay tuned and understand this. You have to. I got to hook a brother up here. Everyone says, "Where's your smartphone app? How can I?" We're working on it right now. I'm trying to figure out where to link you up for the web stream alone, and try to get at very least our connection in through what's the web stream sharing service? Well, you can just go right to the website, but there's a TuneIn Radio app, that kind of thing. We may have to go with that for a little while the ones and zeros people, they kind of move slower than the rest of the world. Some of the folks there, bless you for that. So we were talking about this, and we'll get back to the Cohen trial here in a little bit, but I want to start out with the downtown mall, because the downtown mall is having a renaissance of interest in the city planners and the city spenders on spending more money. And I love the statements. We need to completely rework the downtown mall to make it welcoming for visitors and businesses again. Just like the first time they did that, and they made the downtown mall. I think it's our friends at CBS 19 give you some of the details.
City Councilor Michael Payne says the recommendations focus on city-owned properties and do not address private businesses. The plan includes enhancing side streets to make them more accessible for pedestrians, implementing a plan for all the trees, installing a 24/7 public bathroom, as well as enhancing lighting and placing safety or staff to ensure safety, as well as additional seating. During the presentation of the plan, Payne asked if they plan to bring back seats that were once in the downtown mall but were later removed.
My understanding is there's a number of seating that have been in storage for a number of years. I don't know if that's still the case. Is there any plan to actually put additional seating on the downtown mall at this point?
That's kind of part of how you make it a more welcoming space.
There's a number of seats just sitting in storage. There's no plan at this point to deploy those?
No, it's identified in the plan to actually repair, restore the existing seating where we can track down where it is and get it.
You know, gone are the good old days where you could count on the city council chamber being full of activists screaming for recompense for something. But I don't think they realized that this was going to be an issue of the unhoused. Of course, let's remember just last year when the unhoused in the downtown mall, and I say that in air quotes because I hate the phrase unhoused, but remember when the businesses all rallied to ask the city council to, quote, do something about the homeless on the downtown mall and their defecations and everything else. And there's some of this to this. You heard them mention a 24/7 public bathroom. Bet that's going to be maintained well. Having grown up in New York, I know what 24/7 public bathrooms look like. Mention the Port Authority bus terminal public bathrooms to anyone, and they'll say, "Oh my gosh." I mean, you'll catch something faster there than you will at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Sorry, too soon. In any event, so they want to. The businesses said, do something about this. And this is where young Michael, the city councilor, is coming in late to the party. The reason those seating spots on the downtown mall aren't there anymore is because of the homeless, because they were just sleeping on them. And then the police would have to have 100 people just sleeping on park benches, ostensibly is what they were, the seating on the downtown mall. They were park benches. Just not in a park. So the city took them out so that the unhoused wouldn't be on there. But of course, there are people who work in the homelessness world, like the Salvation Army, whose goal is to have you not be unhoused.
Salvation Army is one of the overnight shelters here in the city, and every closes its shelters till the fall. But Salvation Army prepares for that every time it gets warmer.
There has been an increase of individuals coming into our shelter. This is kind of normal. We last week we were at full capacity, both men and women's side. This week we're running about 90%.
Captain Mark Van Meter is with the Salvation Army. He expects a busy summer.
Kind of know how to get ready and prepare, and we've been having meetings and preparing for these instances for months now.
Charlottesville City Hall is also planning for better solutions for those who are unhoused. It will not happen quickly.
This is a long-term problem that requires some long-term solutions, and unfortunately that takes time. But the city is working and continuing to work, as we have been, actively with our community partners.
One of those solutions right now is a high barrier shelter at the Salvation Army. Its goal is to get people off the streets and into permanent housing.
We have seen anywhere between 7 and 10 individuals monthly leaving our shelter into full housing, stabilizing their income, getting connected with families, and really rebuilding the rhythms that they need.
One long-term goal by the Salvation Army is a new facility with more than 100 beds.
The new facility, once we get money raised and build the building, will have 7 transitional apartments, and our feeding program will go from about 60 seats every meal to approximately 115 seats every meal. Last year we did 59,000 meals total here at the Salvation Army, and in the new facility we expect to be able to serve approximately 110,000.
So the question then becomes, whose responsibility is it? And the phrase, the reason I dislike the word unhoused is it's implicitly meant to give you the feeling that it's somebody else's problem. All my Douglas Adams fans in the room understand what I mean when I say that the somebody else's problem field, though a joke in the 70s when Douglas Adams first wrote it into The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is a very real political thing now. The number one product of government and the government officials, the podium jockeys that we talk about, is the somebody else's problem force field. It doesn't make the problem go away, doesn't even make the problem invisible, just convinces anyone who comes across the problem, whatever the problem is, that somebody else is dealing with it. Why, half of the people that we're going to see finish voting on June 18th in the primaries for the Democratic and Republican Party in the congressional district races, half of them are going to be voting for somebody to fix these societal problems for them. This is why I've done countless hours worth of work for the Salvation Army, because they roll and they walk a really and Captain Van Meter is a sanctified man because he works in a world where it's a little bit too, he talk too much about the salvation part and not enough about the Army part. The city then backs off. Oh, church and state. Oh, my gosh. Go see our opening salvo about the Buddhists. But all that stuff Captain Van Meter was talking about regarding, the people transitioning out of homelessness, this is not something the city cares one iota about. Just get them off the streets so that we can convince people that it's been handled by somebody else. Because the city spokesperson there's just trying not to be the smiley face on homelessness, but we've got plans, we're figuring out things, we're going to do things to figure this out. It's not your job, nor can it be your job. Number one problem with homelessness is that it isn't one thing. It manifests, and this is why I get in trouble for this. I've compared homelessness to cancer, not because it is a cancer, but like cancer, it comes from a myriad of different places manifesting as something very similar. So you see somebody sleeping on the park bench and you're like, wow, that's homeless. Because the manifestation of it in front of your face is somebody who's left a pile of human excrement out in front of the bank on the downtown mall. Real things. I've got real pictures from real listeners who have sent real piles. So aside from leaving your Gomer pile on the downtown mall, it manifests in a lot of ways. But they start in manifestly different ways. So to act like some bureaucratic rule that can be passed and clipped and sent out and here's your sign, that's number one, patently disingenuous, but two, stereotypically what politicians do. They stand behind the lectern and say, I am here to announce this. And it does nothing, and it just creates funding streams. It takes tax money out of people's hands and probably pays a bureaucrat or two, a couple of $100,000 to file reports once every quarter and appear before city council and maybe do the talk shows of a community. That's all it does. It doesn't make people less homeless, because the bureaucrats that they're giving six-figure salaries to manage these homeless programs, they didn't hire them from the community of the homeless. It's funny how the people who run these agriculture programs for the government are rarely farmers. The people who run these homelessness programs for the government were rarely ever homeless. So that's the first problem with homelessness, is that it isn't one thing. But the second one is, what the Salvation Army does is help the person who is suffering through the homelessness fix it themselves, figure it out, get their head straight on. Because sometimes you get into, and I'm living kind of this world of getting this radio station up and off the ground, is you're in this unending current of riptides and waves that are coming at you, and sometimes you don't know which end is up. So I particularly love the life raft of still doing a live radio / TV program every morning, because at least this gives me a fixed point in which to do my navigations from. I know it's 6 a.m. I know where I'm going to be. I may not be dressed, pants optional, whatever. It's the old jokes about TV, network anchors. Sure, he looks nice from the waist up. What's he wearing under that desk? But I'm here, and that's that fixed point in space that we have to work on. But again, it's the city again coming in saying we need to reimagine the downtown mall so that we can make it more welcoming for visitors and business, yet they're going to put in a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day. There's a curfew in Charlottesville. There's a regular standing curfew in Charlottesville, not even an emergency one. So why would you need a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week bathroom if there's a curfew on the downtown mall? Unless you're planning on lifting that. And then what kind of businesses are you looking to? Are we going to have a convenience store open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the downtown mall? That'd be interesting. They're talking about renovating, rebuilding all these city-owned buildings. The list of the city-owned buildings downtown are quite extensive. Bank buildings, old newspaper publishing buildings. There's quite a bit of the downtown mall that isn't private sector. Why, even the Omni Hotel at one end is a public-private co-option, because the Omni Hotel ran out of money halfway through and said to the city, hey, can you pay for the rest of this? Can't imagine where the people trying to build the Dewdrop Inn is what I call it now, Dewberry Arms, the Pockmark Hotel, the property formerly known as the Landmark Hotel, that giant superstructure rising like a middle finger over the knuckles of the city of Charlottesville's downtown. Can't imagine where they got the idea that if they'd get halfway through and go, we're out of money, that the city would swoop in and pay for it. And every time the city becomes more and more impoverished, and the gap between the cost of housing, then there are people who have no addiction problems, have no gambling problems, have no mental health problems whatsoever. They just can't freaking make ends meet because the inventory of housing has gone down. And it becomes more and more scarce because the people say, well, we certainly want to vote for somebody who's going to fix the unhoused situation, but what do you mean they're going to do it on my street? This is Joe Thomas. Join us Saturday morning at Gypsy Hill Park for Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Stanton. Gypsy Hill Park, 10 a.m. It's not just Corvettes. Whatever your ride is, whether it's Mopar or a Mustang or even a hot hatchback, something that you drift with, come on down and show it off at Gypsy Hill Park. It's a $10 admission fee for your car. Dash plaques for the first 200 cars that join in on the celebration. There'll be music, food, and a live broadcast from me, Joe Thomas, in the morning. Gypsy Hill Park to kick off the Memorial Day weekend with Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Central Virginia. Join us there at Gypsy Hill Park starting at 10 with Joe Thomas in the morning.
Your Tuesday forecast calling for areas of fog in the morning, otherwise a sunny and nice day. We'll call it 85 for an afternoon high. Tuesday night, mostly clear and 62, mostly sunny, even warmer on Wednesday, a high of 88. Partly cloudy Wednesday night and 68. By Thursday, about a 50-50 shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, a high in the upper 80s. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Next thing you're going to tell me is there are corrupt people in Congress.
Very good.
Joe Thomas in the morning, and our dear friend from the left coast, as he likes to call it, he is the great Lars Larson, host of the eponymous Lars Larson Show. Good morning, Mr. Larson, sir. You look great. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I got my favorite T-shirt on, so I don't know if you can see that or not. But it's, fact is, I admire you, Joe, because everybody who's ever worked in radio, and I've been in it 49 years, has dreamed that someday they will own their own radio station. So congratulations on having your own shop and your own stick and your own transmitter and all the things that go with it.
Well, they should have explained the fitful nights of, very little sleep as you wake up thinking, oh, did I? And you keep remembering things that you may or may not have asked your chief engineer for in time. So we reached out to Lars because I saw this story on the Epoch Times. It says the headline is, "Control of the U.S. House may be decided in Oregon." And I found that refreshing because usually the stories are about our 5th District congressional primary race and how that might swing control of the House. It's nice to see other congressional districts falling into the headlines here. Who is this Val Hoyle from Eugene? They say Democrat from Eugene. I feel like that's redundant. Who is she, and why is the Epoch Times so convinced that she's going to be the key to flipping the House?
Well, let me tell you about Val Hoyle. Because before she got into Congress, and she just recently got into Congress, she was the officer known as the Commissioner of the Bureau of Labor and Industries. Now, almost every state has an L&I division of some kind. They're the folks who will go to bat for you if, say, you didn't get your final paycheck when the boss let you go, or, harassment and other issues like that. So it's an important issue. It's an important agency that actually has an effect on real people, thousands or tens of thousands of people who have those kinds of issues, and the state will go to bat for them. Okay, good. She's the Boley commissioner. So then what happens? Well, there's a controversy. I say controversial. News throws that term around easily. There's a company called La Moda, and La Moda, I don't know Spanish that well, is for the weed. And they became one of the biggest marijuana retailers in Oregon after Oregon legalized the sale of state-sanctioned marijuana. Well, they began doing some things that were just blatantly illegal, and if not illegal, then unethical. And what they did was they were paying the now former Secretary of State, Shemia Fagan. They were paying her $10,000 a month in cash. And that should always make you suspicious when your paycheck doesn't arrive with a check, but it arrives as a bag of cash.
Oh, yeah.
And she was getting 10 grand a month. She resigned earlier this year in disgrace and is now, I think, fled to Seattle to be a lawyer there. The reason I bring her up is La Moda was spreading campaign cash everywhere. And while they were doing that, while they were, just handing out bags and bags of cash, then what they did was they didn't pay their taxes. They didn't pay their federal taxes. They didn't pay their state taxes. And so they talked about how, in fact, one interview with, it's a couple. I don't think they're married. They're not married, but it's a man and a woman. And they're both a romantic couple, but they run this company. And they're in big trouble now because they failed to pay about $7 million in federal and state taxes. Plus, they were in arrears on the fees you have to pay to get a marijuana license. And one of the weird things about Oregon, I know there's a lot of detail. One of the weird things about Oregon, Washington State, where I live right across the Columbia River, has a limit. no matter how big you are, you can own 5 retail licenses. So if you want to add a license, you have to give one up. And it's kind of sensible that the government does that, because now there are literally hundreds. There aren't quite thousands of marijuana stores in the Northwest, but you can't drive down the road without passing a pot store everywhere you go. And so they've been handing these licenses out. At one point, LaMotta, the weed, had 27 licenses, and the cash was just pouring in. And this young lady who's with the company, one of the partners and the owners, said, "We have so much cash, we don't know what to do with it." Well, one of the things they didn't do with it was pay their taxes. But one of the things they did do was they padded the pockets of a lot of Democrats, including the governor of the state, including the now resigned Secretary of State. And they gave some campaign cash to Val Hoyle so that she could run for Congress. Now, that's one strike. But then Val Hoyle said, well, as commissioner of Bureau of Labor and Industries, this is kind of like Hunter Biden on a small scale. She said, we should set up a training program to train people to work in the retail weed business, the marijuana business.
Sure.
And you think, now, Joe, if you went to work, or I went to work in a small retail store, how long do you suppose it would take to train us? This is the cash register. This is what things cost. And this is how you take a credit card payment or a cash payment, put it in the drawer and key it in. Does that take a couple of hours, maybe?
My grocery store makes me do it for myself. So, I mean, why not have self-checkout at the weed store?
You are a part-time worker at Walmart. So what Val Hoyle did was she said, I want a $500,000 grant to be given to a nonprofit organization that had been set up by LaMotta. Now, officially, there's a wall between the nonprofit and the for-profit, kind of like that wall at the Clinton Foundation or any of the other sleazy foundations out there, and or the wall where the White House says we don't have anything to do with Hunter Biden selling his goofy paintings for hundreds of thousands of dollars. We don't see any connection whatsoever to Joe. That people who want influence with Joe buy one of Hunter's stupid paintings. So it was very clearly a quid pro quo, and our own staff pushed back because it was the biggest grant that Boley had ever given out. And they gave it to LaMotta, and their goal was, you're going to love this, Joe, to train 4 retail clerks in the first year for $500,000. And I know it doesn't get better than this. I mean, it's bad for the taxpayers. I'm with you. But as far as talk radio or saying she's sleazy, that's Val Hoyle. Then both the state and the feds begin doing an investigation with her after she's elected to Congress, because most of this broke after that point. And they go to Congresswoman Val Hoyle and they say, we need to see your cell phone because we have good reason to believe that a lot of the messages back and forth about how these arrangements were being made, what the quid pro quo was for the $500K, for I think she got $60,000 for her congressional race. We need to see those. And Congresswoman Val Hoyle has steadfastly refused to show it. Now, most of us, I wouldn't want to give up my cell phone, but I'm not involved in any sleazy business. And if the police came to me and say, hey, we think you've been involved in something and your cell phone's going to show it, I'd say, feel free. I mean, I'd ask them to get a warrant, go through the legal process. She won't give up her cell phone. Now, they have all the other records, but an awful lot of this, Joe, and this is a problem we really should solve for all states. What states should do is say, if you're going to work as a government official, you will use the government's email for all business. Now, if you want to chat with your husband, your kids, your brother-in-law, whatever, and use your cell phone, but the minute, and this has come up before because we had a governor who had to resign a few years ago because his girlfriend was peddling favors out of the governor's office, Sylvia Hayes, grifter her whole life, and John Kitzhaber. He had just been elected and he resigned about 30 days after his inauguration, believe it or not. And what was going on? She was selling influence and she made about $200,000 and had to pay a $50,000 fine. Now, Joe, for most of us, that's a pretty good deal. Make $200,000, pay a $50,000 fine, cost of doing business. I'm sure the mob does it all the time. I know I'm running off of the mouth, but the point is, when you have government officials, whether it's Hillary Clinton with her ball-peen hammered Blackberries or her servers, computer servers wiped like with a cloth, that nonsense, the minute you let these people do official business outside of the office on your personal devices or personal accounts, there are two things that ought to happen. Number one, it should be strictly against the rules and just lay it out to them. The minute you send one message that has to do with your official duties as governor on anything other than your government phone and your government email, everything else you have, that opens the door, and the investigators are free to say, we want to see. And we don't have to take, say, Hillary's excuse that, well, I was just swapping wedding plans and yoga routine and recipes for this, that, or the other thing. You don't have to take that garbage. Just tell these people you're on notice. You will use your government account. If you fail to do it and you use your personal phone for one official action, then your cell phone is ours.
Well, it reminds me of your friend and mine, Chris Horner, when he discovered Richard Windsor, who was not really a person, but was the fake Gmail account of the head of the EPA, and used this nom de guerre to exchange favors and policy information with Greenpeace and all these other organizations who obviously couldn't just go into the office of the Environmental Protection Agency without somebody saying, should they be having this kind of influence? And that's the reason I bring that up is we have laws on the books that say if you do government business, but nobody ever gets punished for this. As a matter of fact, the woman who was at the head of the EPA wound up being a consultant to the EPA in the Obama administration. So where's the punishment in it?
There should be some strict, and in fact, I would go with the rule that was in place when Hillary Clinton destroyed all those government documents, because we know for a fact she had emails that were official government emails, and she destroyed some of them because she went through them and said, I've taken out all the personal ones. Well, the problem is, unless you're using separate accounts, then and keeping all of your business over here. I mean, like you've just started running a small business. I have Lars Radio LLC with all of 3 employees. And what I do on that is everything that's business related comes from the business checking account, the business debit card. Yeah. Everything is personal. Now, would it be tempting to pull out the business credit card and make a personal purchase with it? I don't do that. I don't need the trouble with the IRS. Now, what we ought to tell these people is there are punishments, and one of them is if you are convicted, and this was one of the punishments built in for destroying public records, which Hillary Clinton did, and then James Comey got her off. It's amazing that the head of the FBI gets a criminal out of trouble. But it was, you may not hold public office for 3 years. Now imagine if the Commonwealth of Virginia did that and said, if we catch you doing private business on, government business on your private cell phone, then you are out of office. And if you're sitting in an office now, you're done. You're gone. Yeah. And if you want to run for office, you're not allowed to run for office. It's simply off limits. And now that would be an effective punishment for most of these jokers, because the power that they have comes from holding the office. Right. And as we
Joe Thomas. Join us Saturday morning at Gypsy Hill Park for Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Stanton. Gypsy Hill Park, 10 a.m. It's not just Corvettes. Whatever your ride is, whether it's Mopar or a Mustang or even a hot hatchback, something that you drift with, come on down and show it off at Gypsy Hill Park. It's a $10 admission fee for your car. Dash plaques for the first 200 cars that join in on the celebration. There'll be music, food, and a live broadcast from me, Joe Thomas, in the morning. Gypsy Hill Park to kick off the Memorial Day weekend with Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Central Virginia. Join us there at Gypsy Hill Park starting at 10 with Joe Thomas in the morning.
Your Tuesday forecast calling for areas of fog in the morning, otherwise a sunny and nice day. We'll call it 85 for an afternoon high. Tuesday night, mostly clear and 62, mostly sunny, even warmer on Wednesday, a high of 88. Partly cloudy Wednesday night and 68. By Thursday, about a 50-50 shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, a high in the upper 80s. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Visiting with Lars Larson of the syndicated Lars Larson Show on corruption that may bring down a Democrat in Louisiana. How does this woman, get held to account? I mean, it doesn't sound like she's worried about, the House Ethics Committee. So what is Congresswoman Hoyle facing? I mean, is there a reasonable opposition to her getting reelected into the House?
Well, there is, but you know who the front line of that opposition ought to be? It's not, but it ought to be. There are private groups, political groups, that have said, look, she's dirty and she needs to answer for this. And she has not. What the private groups should be mirrored by and who should be leading the charge is the mainstream media. They should say, we have a member of Congress from our state who is implicated in this. She has refused to answer reasonable questions. These are not crazy questions. If Val Hoyle did no wrong and there isn't evidence on her cell phone, why is she refusing to hand it over? And has she erased any of those records? Because, Joe, you and I both know that if you get a call this morning or if I get a call that says, Lars, you're under investigation, if I go in and start deleting records, even if they really had nothing to do with what I'm suspected of, I'm already aware that is tampering with evidence, which is another crime. And the mainstream media, the reporters in Oregon and to some extent Washington state, should be demanding, they should be doing one of these, we stake out the member of Congress till she gives us legitimate answers. There's nothing wrong with that. And I've seen them do that to Republicans here in the very, very liberal Northwest. You can't swing a dead cat without, in this place, it's so blue, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a godless heathen Democrat. So, that they should be demanding that answer. Because as far as I'm concerned, when I was a reporter, I loved to have a politician who was clearly implicated in wrongdoing and then refused to answer questions about the wrongdoing, because all they're doing is making it worse. It's like the guy who walks out of the courthouse after arraignment with his coat pulled up over his head. He's guilty.
Right. Well, that's the bigger part of the story is this, and I've only seen it happen when the political party has gotten involved and said, yeah, we want her out. And once they take the media off the leash and say, we've got a new guy, go after her, that's when they do it. That's the only time I ever see that happen is when.
And to some extent, they do everybody a favor. You say, well, you got to pick somebody to throw out of the lifeboat. Al Franken got picked one time and the Democrats threw him out of the lifeboat. But what they effectively want to do is kind of no different than what a lot of crazy religions used to do in the past. The volcano god would say, throw in a virgin. Well, I don't think Al Franken was a virgin by any stretch of the imagination, but they threw him into the volcano. And they said, okay, we've made our human sacrifice, now leave the rest of us alone. And to a large extent, that's what the media does. Instead of saying, look, you've already admitted this person was so dirty that even the Democrats couldn't put up with him, and you threw him out of the boat or into the volcano. Now, how about the rest of you? How about you answer some questions? And as far as I'm concerned, when I was a reporter, I considered it good sport and fair game to go after politicians who wouldn't give legitimate answers. And so far, Val Hoyle is just trying to brazen it through, hoping that. And unfortunately, Joe, this happens. If somebody calls you and says, hey, Joe, have you done a story on this? And you say, yeah, we did it last Thursday. You say, well, do it again. Well, to some extent, you may have to keep doing it again, saying day 42 of Congresswoman Val Hoyle refusing to answer questions about her pay-to-play arrangements with LaMotta, especially when you can show proof in the campaign contributions and expenditures reports that she got money from LaMotta, and proof positive in a written contract to pay LaMotta $500,000 to train 4 retail clerks, when I would bet the average weed store would tell you, yeah, come in 15 minutes early tomorrow, we'll train you how to sell pot.
$125,000 per clerk. I mean, just pay them that and they should be okay. So finish up on this is we have a famous saying around here. It comes from the gaming world, not a bug, but a feature. I hear a lot of young people who say, well, the system is broken. Look at the corruption. And they'll point to a Menendez or a Hoyle or even a Hunter Biden. And they'll say, look, the system's broke. We need a whole new one. And I think that's part and parcel. I hate to, sift through the tea leaves looking for something in between them. But I think this cavalier attitude towards this is all designed to make us welcome in the day when they say, listen, we're scrapping this whole congressional thing. There's going to be 4 or 5 guys who decide everything, and they will be above reproach, and you'll all be happy. It's the whole World Economic Forum. You'll own nothing and you'll have no privacy, but you'll never have been happier. Because I think, as every free society prior to this has done, the only way to get us to give up liberty is to have us hand it over to somebody in exchange for fighting this corruption, to make this quote.
And a lot of us object to that, Joe. You and I both think World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, he's almost like a cartoon character, evil guy, $1 million. I mean, this guy has to go. WEF has to go. WHO has to be rejected. But do we need a whole new system? Number one, Joe, there is almost no way to create a whole new system. And the problem is the people who could create that whole new system are the Congress. Right. And the Congress has institutional, it's an institution. And if you say to it, we want you to wholly remake what the American system is. No, there's a step short of that. And it's not because I wouldn't love to see that kind of thing happen, but I just don't see a realistic way to make it happen. So instead of that, let's have full disclosure of everything. Let's have harsh penalties for people who step across the line. And let's publicize those harsh penalties. I mean, you remember when they were demanding Donald Trump's tax returns? That's not even in the law. It's just a tradition that began after Spiro Agnew got into tax trouble, which, if I remember correctly, he was acquitted of later, but he was forced to resign as vice president. And after that, they said, oh, now we have to have the tax returns. Everybody runs for office. I care less about your tax returns because the IRS, if you're cheating on your taxes, is theoretically already on top of you. What I do care about is once you're in office, is everything you're doing transparent to the public? Mm-hmm. And if you decide, and I think this should apply even to people like Clarence Thomas and people on the Supreme Court. You and I have shared a meal now and then, maybe I bought you a drink now and then, and I don't think that's big stuff. But when you become friends with very, very, very wealthy people and they say, hey, I'm going to have my private jet pick you and the missus up and fly you to the other side of the planet to a place that's not even open to the public. But if it were, it would cost thousands of dollars a night to stay there. That is not what the rules meant when they said ordinary hospitality. What they mean by ordinary hospitality is if I met a member of Congress and said, hey, let's go grab some lunch, should he say, yeah, as long as we don't go past $50 or $100 or whatever. And no, I'm not taking, courtside seats at some ball game because those are past the limits. Or if you want to take them and fully disclose them and then own it. When the public says, hey, how come you're getting tickets that are worth thousands of dollars from a guy who has interests on Capitol Hill? Make it one way or the other. And if you fail to do either, because it's certainly possible, every small business owner who runs his or her books legitimately, like you and me, says, this money is the business. This money is mine. Right. Neither the two shall merge, or what do they call it? Commingle.
Neither the twain shall meet was the expression. I think Mark Twain first said that when he ran for office. He is Lars Larson. He is the host of the Lars Larson Show, Compass Media Network, soon to be heard on the new WTON 1240, 101.1 and 98.9 in the Shenandoah Valley. Lars, it's great to catch up with you. And people know me well enough. They know I'm an ardent supporter of the Article 5 convention, the Convention of States. Mark Meckler folks, because we have to, I think the best way to fix this is to take the power away from these people, because then why bother giving them hundreds of millions of dollars if they can't do anything for you? But that's why I like the phrase restorative almost more than I like the word conservative these days, because I want to get back to where these offices don't have that kind of problem, right?
Absolutely. And tell them, by the way, Joe, you kind of glanced across it. If a bureaucracy is doing something, unelected, faceless, nameless bureaucrats. You go to your member of Congress and say, why are you letting the EPA do that? That should be done by Congress. And if you say, well, we can't get it through Congress, so we're having the bureaucrats do it, that is unacceptable. Say, if the people's representatives will not sign off on waters of the U.S. taking away your land rights, then it shouldn't happen. Even if you say, but we have a way to let a little bureaucrat that nobody's ever heard of, was never elected and can't be kicked out of office. The other thing I'd like is everybody talks term limits. You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see bureaucracy limits. You can serve in the federal bureaucracy, pick a number, 10 years, 12 years, and then get out and go back to the private sector. And you say, nobody in the private sector wants my mediocre skills. You say, well, then you're going to be working at 7-Eleven or a weed shop instead. But if you caused a churn and you said you have to bring fresh blood in, but they don't come in thinking, I'm going to work for the federal government, I'm going to be here for the next 4 decades. No, you are allowed to come in, do your piece, earn a federal paycheck, and then go right back to the private sector. Now that raises other issues because I used to look, I did a bunch of documentaries on the railroads, and they have the National Railroad Administration, which unfortunately is populated with what? People who know about railroads. Well, where do you think they hired them from? From the railroads. And where will they go back to work? In the railroads. So just keep an eye on them. But Joe, you gotta hire people to the FCC who know something about radio, TV, and internet. And so do that, but say you are term limited. And it may be, if you're in a top position, maybe the term limit is 5 years. And make it overlap presidential.
And restrict their access to K Street, because K Street technically is the private sector, but we got to watch them as well. Lars, thank you so much. LarsLarson.com. God bless you, sir, and you have a great day.
You know what, Joe? I'm going to be bringing a ton of honestly provocative talk radio to WTON.
We love it.
Your Tuesday forecast calling for areas of fog in the morning, otherwise a sunny and nice day. We'll call it 85 for an afternoon high. Tuesday night, mostly clear and 62, mostly sunny, even warmer on Wednesday, a high of 88. Partly cloudy Wednesday night and 68. By Thursday, about a 50-50 shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, a high in the upper 80s. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in and tuning in, downloading the Rumble app or your YouTube app or however you do it. Bluetooth, green sleeves. It does make a difference to me. Just be there. And very soon you'll be able to bask in the glow of amplitude and frequency modulation. T-minus 4 days and counting will be live because I don't do anything simple. So our inaugural broadcasts will be live, and I guess this is the debate. We close, and then we have the car show on Saturday morning. So our coming out party will be a car show, internal combustion engines. What a thing. Oh, I imagine you could bring a Tesla there. You know what? I have a dear friend who has a Tesla and a diesel generator. You know where I'm going with this. So my dear friend, what they do is they charge their Tesla with their diesel generator, and they figured they're getting about 80 miles a gallon on diesel based on the amount of time this diesel generator takes to charge their Tesla. But that's neither here nor there. But this car show, all are welcome. It's vets for vets, but you can bring your Tesla if you want to with your diesel generator. That would be particularly fun. Or your Mustang, your Mopar, your hot hatchback, whatever it is that you've got. If you've got lowered trucks, please no Carolina squats. They're illegal in the Commonwealth. Still see them. Don't get them. Someone explained the Carolina squat to me and why Virginians love anything called the Carolina squat anyway. It sounds like the final score of a UVA baseball game against the Tar Heels. Anyway, You can join in at 434-882-4217, live real calls as opposed to live, girls. But live real calls each and every morning, as there will be, once we're inside the radios of Central Virginia. Again, I want to segue into, and we'll get to some of your emails as well and text messages on the YouTube channel. We were talking about Charlottesville's downtown mall problem again, and the city has announced that they're going to have a big new campaign to fix the downtown mall to make it pedestrian and customer friendly and business friendly. Again, it was the 70s the first time they did that. It was part of the eminent domain project that they used to oust the Vinegar Hill folks and build around the Ridge McIntyre corridor, all part of the 5th Street extended. If you've never been through Charlottesville, it's basically a boulevard through the middle of town. Finally, only in the last few years, culminating on the John Warner Parkway, which gets you all the way to the north side of town up by Rio Road. That being said, the Department of Transportation back in the 50s, at the insistence of some well-placed UVA alumni in the U.S. House and Senate and their staffers, convinced the Department of Transportation to run I-64 through Charlottesville instead of Lynchburg. And in doing so, the Department of Transportation said, okay, but these paved over goat paths that you call a road system are not going to suffice. You need some traffic mitigation for the extra traffic that's going to come through Charlottesville. And since the 50s, when they proposed this, only one of those roads was built. It was, ironically, the one through the black neighborhood. It is how, unfortunately, the authoritarians in American government build road projects. They go to the poorest neighborhood. Probably there's an efficacy to the fact that the eminent domain doesn't cost as much. They oust all of the denizens of that poor, mostly brown-skinned communities. And I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I'm saying it is what it is. And if you don't own it, you can't fix it. And conservatives are like, oh, you sound like a liberal when you say that, Joe. No, it's the truth. Truth is truth. And they did the one project, because there were supposed to be two kind of loop highways that went around Charlottesville as well, never got built. Some of them got planned, never got built, mostly because they went through wealthier parts of town that could pay politicians off to say, I don't think the water study was done correctly on that, so we may have to hold off on that western bypass for a while. But the 5th Street Extended project, connecting down, the I-64 corridor right through Charlottesville, conveniently went right through the black neighborhood called Vinegar Hill, and they did it. But part of it also then became monies for the downtown mall. And they closed off Main Street, closed it off at both ends, started laying red bricks down there because we don't use them to build every building around here, so we look like Monticello. And then the culmination, the big centerpiece was going to be this giant hotel that the Omni chain was going to build, but the Omni chain ran out of money about halfway through, maybe 3/4 of the way through, and the city said, we'll give you the rest, just give us some portion of it. And since then, there's been an infestation of publicly owned buildings on the downtown mall, and that's what they're claiming they're going to use to fix the downtown mall. Tom writes in from Nelson, when I moved to Virginia 20 years ago, even that recently, I found downtown Charlottesville to be quaint and charming. Today, not at all. 7 Carrington writes in on the YouTube channel, and we'll get into more of that. You can call as well. The diagonal parking, local banks, drug and department store, all were icons of a bygone era. The Waltons were frequent patrons. No amount of money can undo the present state of restless transiency. Well, part of this, 7, is that the allowance to centralize our entire American situation. So it's not just the elected monarch that we're going to elect in November, and their executive branch knights of the round table, the cabinet secretaries, each with their own police departments and court systems. Oh no, it's not just that. No. It's not just that. It is the centralization of our economy, so that the department stores have become big box chains. And what that does, there's an implicit degradation of the value of work that comes along with that as well. Let me see who's on the line at 434-882-4217. Good morning. Who's this?
Hey, Joe, it's Mike Allers. How are you this morning, sir?
Good, Mike. What's going on, sir?
I'm just giving you an update on the 5 Buddhist monks.
Where are they walking?
I was just driving around 29 North.
Okay.
I was passing them and their which is interesting.
Well, I didn't miss that. You missed that. You went through a dead zone because we hate cell phone towers in Central Virginia. What were they doing?
I said they have American flags.
Oh, yeah. No, they have some great American flags there. Here's a question. You're an educator. So they were hosted by Albemarle County Schools to give a presentation, and I know that their Buddhism, leads them to make this march for peace. But one wonders, Mike, what do you think would happen if 5 rabbis were walking along the roads of the Mid-Atlantic, stopping and giving speeches about peace in the Middle East or places like that, or 5 Catholic bishops? Do you think they'd be welcome into the public schools to give such a presentation?
Well, I heard your opening this morning, and my brain was, my wife and I were talking about while she was eating her breakfast. And I'm not going to address the religious factor for a minute, but when I was a principal up in Madison County, I brought E.W. Jackson in.
Oh, well.
To my school. And
kick the tires and light the fires.
Yeah, well, from Mount Vernon was giving us a George Washington portrait to display in the school. Okay. And forgive me, I think the guy's name, believe it or not, who painted it is Rembrandt, but it's not the Rembrandt.
Okay.
But anyway, so I wanted to unveil that portrait, and I wanted to bring E.W. Jackson in. But at the time, obviously he's a bishop. At the time, he was running for lieutenant governor, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was hell trying to get that arranged.
Oh, I'm sure. You've got politics and religion. Oh my goodness, Mike, you don't do anything the easy way. You're like that. No wonder I like you so much.
So what we wound up doing was, he's a George Washington scholar, so we kept it to George Washington. He talked about George Washington kneeling in the snow and praying. We worked it all in. But as far as the 5 Buddhists, your Catholics, rabbis, whoever, would never be allowed to go in there. It's just that it's a unique feature, the 5 Buddhists. But anything else would just be, I think, especially in, can you imagine Charlottesville inviting 5 Catholic priests?
No, not at all. So, I know what they did with the group Worth Your Weight, and they're not even priests; they're lay ministry. But good stuff, Mike. So they're on 29. Are they in Green or are they still in Albemarle?
They're soon to be making the crossover. I just passed them, the Boulders Road by Engic.
Okay. Ground Intelligence
I just passed them there.
See, they should stop there. I mean, if they want to do ministry for peace, they should be stopping up on Boulders Road, see if they can get into the Ground Intelligence Center and the DOD.
Well, that or maybe they could get up in Quantico, because apparently that's easy to do. But I mean,
yes. Well.
They'll keep their name secret. That's all I know.
All right. Good stuff, Mike. I appreciate the update from the road, though, sir.
All right. God bless you, Joe. Have a great day.
Thanks. 434-882-4217. Back to Seven's point about the bygone era. Part of what's allowed to happen, and in the 90s, we rejiggered the way money moves and really focused it all into Wall Street, because Wall Street has become more of a thermometer for, the economy's doing well. You and I are buying 40% less groceries. Wall Street seems to be up every week. And I'm not doing this as class warfare. But this is feeding the flames of the American authoritarian Marxist. it makes their case. And that's what I mean is when you see the homeless people and you see poverty, we, the conservative free market, classically liberal, Adam Smith devotees, if you will, look at it, and we have to roll up the sleeves and get in and fix this in a free market way, because it's going to collapse. And then where are we going to be? This is Joe Thomas. Join us Saturday morning at Gypsy Hill Park for Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Stanton. Gypsy Hill Park, 10 a.m. It's not just Corvettes. Whatever your ride is, whether it's Mopar or a Mustang or even a hot hatchback, something that you drift with, come on down and show it off at Gypsy Hill Park. It's a $10 admission fee for your car. Dash plaques for the first 200 cars that join in on the celebration. There'll be music, food, and a live broadcast from me, Joe Thomas, in the morning. Gypsy Hill Park to kick off the Memorial Day weekend with Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Central Virginia. Join us there at Gypsy Hill Park starting at 10 with Joe Thomas in the morning.
Your Tuesday forecast calling for areas of fog in the morning, otherwise a sunny and nice day. We'll call it 85 for an afternoon high. Tuesday night, mostly clear and 62, mostly sunny, even warmer on Wednesday, a high of 88. Partly cloudy Wednesday night and 68. By Thursday, about a 50-50 shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, a high in the upper 80s. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning, and it is time to find out what happened on the field of play. For a week and a half, the Washington Nationals haven't been able to score even with their wives, and all of a sudden it all exploded all over the Minnesota Twins yesterday, and the Griffith family is like, why did we move out of D.C.? That and more, and everyone learning the acronym LAX. LAX is not how we program the show. It has to do with lacrosse. Good morning, Brother Mac. How are you, sir?
Hey, JoJo, good morning. Happy Tuesday. And Caitlin Clark, we'd like to thank you for participating in this year's WNBA because you're going to have a 0-4. Team is 0-4, so we can calm down a little bit. And I probably was part of some of that hype. Her cereal crunch time will be hunch time because I have a hunch that they won't be in the play. 26 turnovers now in 4 games. They're beating the pulp out of her. And, you know, the officials are going, welcome, Caitlin, you're a rookie. Anyway, they got beat last night. Fever got beat last night by 4. They had a chance. I was teaching online last night, was watching the game. All right, the Nats scored a dozen, as Joe was just talking about. Beat the Twins 12-3. It snapped a 5-game losing streak. Washington had lost 7 of 8. Luis Garcia homered, had 3 ribbies. Meanwhile, St. Louis doubled up the Orioles 6-3, another very important interleague game. Michael Sinai goes yard for the first time in his career, books 4 ribbies. And Yankees 7-game winning streak history.
Oh, no.
The Stripes lost to Seattle 5-4. Mariners pull off a 4-run 9th. Red Sox win, shutting out the Rays 5-0. Rafael Devers homers in his 6th straight game. That's a Red Sox record, by the way.
Nice.
Tanner Houck gets up 2 hits through 7. All right, now, couple of entries, UVA related. I have always loved this time of year for a lot of reasons. ACC baseball, NCAA lacrosse, men's and women's golf, women's softball tournaments going on. And this is a great time of year, in May. If there is any coach in America more positive than Lars Tiffany, I'd like to meet him. Okay. Conviction, supportive, believer, manager, motivator. I could go on. Virginia got the double overtime winner from Connor Schellenberger Sunday, right? Sending the Cavs to another D1 Final Four. That's 26 now if you're keeping score. 2 NC2A titles, 2-time ACC Coach of the Year. This is all about Lars. And his 8th year, his mental side of the game outweighs rides and dodges that the Cavaliers execute, right? His style, his way, his young men, Lars Tiffany.
It's the style we want to play. We want to pressure ride. We want to push transition. We want to be aggressive on defense. We're going to go man down a few times. It's the game I grew up with, inherited from the Onondaga people. That's the way we're going to play this game at the University of Virginia. The power of belief. I've been on some sidelines where you can tell it's not going our way today, but not today, even though we never led until the very end.
Can they hire him for like an assistant football coach?
You talk about guys you talk about people making graduation speeches. I mean, come on. 205 wins as a head coach. Saturday, an opportunity to play on Memorial Day Monday. Another shot at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got Denver, and UVA gets Maryland. Maryland's a 10 seed. UVA is a 5 seed. So it's not. It's almost like it's not a D1 Final Four unless Maryland and Virginia are playing each other. I mean,
That's right.
It's pretty good stuff. All right. Speaking of success, 9 UVA baseball players garnered all conference honors, all ACC. Ethan Anderson and Griff O'Farrell earned first team. Okay. Nice. Harrison Didowig, Jacob Ferentz, and Casey Saki were placed on the all ACC second team. I don't know what team the writers of this committee was watching. Anyway, UVA opens the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament in Charlotte Wednesday against Georgia Tech, and that'll be 11 a.m. 40 wins again has placed the Wahoos in good position for this weekend and beyond, and for a home NC2A regional. Brian O'Connor believes in him, and his system has worked, right? Anyway, it's impressive what this team has done, and Brian would be the first to tell you.
Only playing 54 games is really, really special, and it's hard to do in college baseball, and that shows the fight and the grit that this team has. Listen, this is a really, really tough league. I mean, it's every weekend, and just proud of our guys because we're playing some of our best baseball.
Yeah, nice. Cavs are a 4 seed, top seed in Pool D. Miami and Louisville will open things today at 11 o'clock. So you win a couple of games, you're in the semifinals. It's that simple. Win Wednesday, and they got Florida State Friday. So they got Georgia Tech, and then they've got Florida State on Friday, would get you to Saturday, and then hopefully the championship. I think the championship is at noon on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So, all right, Scotty Scheffler's arraignment date. I was waiting for this because the time was 9 o'clock this morning, and I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen, what the judge. Well, the Scotty Scheffler arraignment date now over the multiple charges stemming from the Valhalla incident when it went from, tea time to hard time with the Louisville Metro police officer. It has been delayed. On Monday, court documents show the arraignment date originally scheduled for today, pushed back to June 3rd, as I said. Scheffler's attorney, Steve Romines, has told multiple news outlets that Scheffler will enter a not guilty plea. Of course, he will. Yeah. He should. Yeah, he should. So with the way that, and I think, did I mention, and I talked to some people, did I mention yesterday that happened to me in an ACC tournament where the cop banged on the hood? Did I mention that story? I get so old I can't remember, what it done. But anyway, same thing happened to me. Flashlight in the window, and I'm thinking, but the flashlight's moving, and I'm thinking he's telling me to go. So as I went to go, he steps to the side of my car, pounds on the hood of my car, and goes, "I told you to bleep and stop. What are you doing?" Now, he didn't grip me on the car, and I didn't open the door, and I didn't say, "By the way, do you know who I am?" No, I did not do that. When it's dark and rainy, and we have a major death incident, I mean, we could talk about this forever and ever and ever, but anyway, Scotty Scheffler is the arraignment now is back. So
and there's a great column, and I think I've mentioned I'm going to be speaking at this talk radio magazine, talk radio publications convention, and the fellow I'm introducing, Steve Lappa, is a consultant in the spoken word field, and he just wrote a beautiful column about local news and how he was driving along the interstate, and a tanker truck was pulled over to the side of the road. Without exaggeration, exploded within a quarter mile of him. And everything obviously came to a dead stop, and he was stuck in traffic. He said they waited 2 hours as the fire department came and helicopters, and they got the fire out, and he was amazed to watch all this. He said not one news truck, not one helicopter, not one news van came by the scene to report on it. And he was scanning around the radio, and everything was a Dan Patrick show or
Pat McAfee
there's somebody or there's Lars Larson or but everything was syndicated, and there were no local newsrooms sending a reporter out there. And I remembered, thinking about it. I remember the first news director I ever worked with. She drove around with a tape recorder in the back of her car and a microphone,
Absolutely.
just in case she came across something that she didn't hear about on her scanner. Nowadays, I mean, our buddy Tommy at Blue Ridge Life magazine, he told me about this. He said now your scanner is on your phone. You can actually put a scanner app on your phone, so you don't even have to have that old Radio Shack scanner in your newsroom anymore.
My father, and tomorrow, remind me, I'll write the note.
Let me just, before you tell, the point I'm saying is Scotty didn't know. He didn't know there had been a death. Probably there was nobody reporting on it. It was Coast to Coast AM. Yeah. Somebody was talking about missing time, and he's trying to get to a tee-off time, and nothing on the radio is saying, hey, there was a death at the golf tournament. Relatively big story as an adjunct to a relatively big event. I mean, these are the things you got to be ready for. Anyway, I'm sorry. I just wanted to
with
stick
the
landing.
The way it was unfolding too, and you also had police that weren't really prepared to understand who gets through, who does not. Media, whatever happens tomorrow, Joe. And I've told my class, I think every term, I've told them the story of my coverage of the lady who shoots her husband down by the county office building.
Oh yeah.
And I was there live, and I have never been so freaked in my life. But remind me, I'll tell you that story. But in talking about live coverage, and my dad, every police and fire call throughout the night. Now our house was not that big in Des Moines, and I listened to police calls, and if there was a fire, my father he loved firemen. He loved the way they handle. It wasn't, to see news break or to look at anything.
Crisis manager, yeah.
Fire cover, and he would get up in the middle of the night and drive to the fire to watch how it's being managed and handled. It was just something like that. And that scanner would scream in the middle of the night. I had a guy hit me. A guy hit my car, hit and run. Okay, takes off. I go through all the police. I get home that night. I hear on my father's scanner the guy who hit my car being caught. I mean, it was the greatest thing I was ever.
But your story, I mean, also belies because there are so many instances in the sports world where the earthquake when the A's were playing the Giants in the World Series. The instances where news and sports come together. And certainly September 11th, dragged a lot of us into milieus that we didn't.
We did NFL, the Pete Rozelle decision, absolutely.
And it reminds us, we silo and we say, well, I only do sports, or I only do politics, or I only do whatever, and we got to be better at that. People used to ask me when I was doing music radio, well, what kind of bits do you do, Joe? What kind of stuff? Are you a yuckmeister? And it's like, well, if something deserves to be made fun of, I'd like to think we can make fun of it. But if it's serious, we've got to be ready to be serious. You can't just pigeonhole yourself. We were just talking about centralization, where the city of Charlottesville is ready to do another major renovation of the downtown mall because the last one, I guess, didn't stick. So they're going to reimagine it. And somebody was talking about all the local businesses, the local department stores, the local banks and everything. I said that's centralization, that specialization. Oh, I only do sports. I only do news. So you're talking about having to go cover a shooting because you were probably the guy in the newsroom. They're like, Mac, go
Sarah
out there.
McConnell, who I love to death to this day, Sarah McConnell said, Mac, you got to go. And that's when cell phones were in bags.
Yeah.
And I put a transistor radio in my ear, and I'll tell you the whole story tomorrow because it freaked me out to no end. But we tell our students all the time, you got to be ready. I was told that. I had to learn everything because the director of broadcasting in Northwest Missouri State said, Mac, you're not just going to walk into a full-time sports job. That just doesn't happen in this day and age. Your first radio station is going to need a news guy, an entertainer, a jock.
Somebody
you're going to have to
weekend
learn
music, right?
Absolutely. You're going to have to learn everything and be so I covered tornadoes in Iowa. I mean, I went live. I was at a golf tournament in Iowa. Went live from the pro shop covering a tournament that was over the golf. I mean, covering a tornado that was over the.
But you have to because the tornado is real and there's no time to get someone else there. Good stuff, Mac. As always, I appreciate
so anyway,
it.
I could talk that stuff forever and ever. That's why we have the little. That's why we have the little statue there.
Today on the Learning Annex. Today, PBS presents the Learning Annex. What does journalism mean? Thank you, Brother Mac. We will talk to you in the morning, sir.
I will see you tomorrow. I hope you have a good day.
This is Joe Thomas. Join us Saturday morning at Gypsy Hill Park for Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Stanton. Gypsy Hill Park, 10 a.m. It's not just Corvettes. Whatever your ride is, whether it's Mopar or a Mustang or even a hot hatchback, something that you drift with, come on down and show it off at Gypsy Hill Park. It's a $10 admission fee for your car. Dash plaques for the first 200 cars that join in on the celebration. There'll be music, food, and a live broadcast from me, Joe Thomas, in the morning. Gypsy Hill Park to kick off the Memorial Day weekend with Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Central Virginia. Join us there at Gypsy Hill Park starting at 10 with Joe Thomas in the morning.
Your Tuesday forecast calling for areas of fog in the morning, otherwise a sunny and nice day. We'll call it 85 for an afternoon high. Tuesday night, mostly clear and 62, mostly sunny, even warmer on Wednesday, a high of 88. Partly cloudy Wednesday night and 68. By Thursday, about a 50-50 shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, a high in the upper 80s. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in, riding along Rumble, YouTube, and the fascinating world of Bluetooth audio in cars. People have got it's just like there's a radio station attached to it, and that will, of course, T-minus 4 days and counting when there will be frequency and amplitude modulation to go along with this. People ask me, well, we'll get into that later. Our friend Mary Sandridge is on with us from the Alzheimer's Association of Central and Western Virginia. ALZ.org is her website there, and of course ALZ Central and Western Virginia, Alzheimer's CWVA on X as well. How are you doing this morning, Mary?
Doing okay. Got a beagle barking, but other than that, I'm good.
Well, that's quite all right. I mean, that's what beagles do. You can't deny the nature of the beagle. There, was he part of the pickleball tournament? I can imagine a beagle at a pickleball tournament might be either helpful or problematic for those trying to play because they just want to chase the ball.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, they're so scent oriented, and then their, noises make them bark. So hopefully he'll calm down in a minute.
It's all right. It's all good. So how did the pickleball tournament go at the Greencroft Club this past weekend?
Well, the weather was a little iffy over the weekend, so we moved everything to Sunday, and I think that made it even better. We had everyone together. There's a new racket sports manager at Greencroft, Jim, who this was his first time with this event, so he was great. We had some pickleball players who truly came out because they wanted to support the cause. It wasn't that, oh, it's a pickleball tournament, I go play in all of them. It was, I want to support the Alzheimer's Association in this pickleball tournament.
Great. And this is just one of the many things that add up towards the longest day. This is one of the adjuncted to the longest day fundraisers, right?
Correct. The longest day started as an event where people would actually do something on the longest day of the year, but then it has turned into people can do anything anytime during the year. It really is a do-it-yourself fundraiser, whatever you want to do, and then the money goes to the longest day. We've got a longest day fundraiser in October, for instance, the car show that has been going on for several years, started in the Valley, moved to Charlottesville last year. That'll be happening in October. That's the longest day event.
That was the one that was at the Boar's Head, right?
No, that was we were at Sam's Club.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. So many car shows. I said, at some point, somebody's going to clamp down on these internal combustion engines. My gosh. And the longest day has bridge clubs and bicycle marathons, golfing, so many things. Is there still time as we bear down on the unofficial start of summer, which is Memorial Day weekend, but then the official start of summer is the longest day for the Alzheimer's Association? Are there still chances for people to come up with something?
Certainly. My colleague, Emily Rosenberger, who leads our longest day effort, says that you can use the longest day. If your fundraiser is before that, you can use that to celebrate with all the people who donated to you, celebrate the fact that you are supporting the association on social media. If you haven't started your longest day event, let the summer solstice be when you kick it off. Let that be when you let everybody know you're doing it for the longest day. You have more time to fundraise, obviously, so you can just kick it off on the longest day.
Good deal. And there's no limitations. I mean, if you want to say, I'm going to listen to a radio program all day, or that could be fine. Or you're going to read to books to kids. You can do any number of things, right?
Yeah, and Emily is always there to help you figure out, okay, I'm going to read to children all day. How do I turn that into a fundraiser? She can help you with that. So, the longest day is just a great event. We have someone new who found out about the longest day, and she is a boat captain of a boat on Lake Anna, and she is going to do boat rides that normally cost way more than she's going to ask a donation for on June 9th, on Sunday, June 9th. So something different for you and your spouse to do, you and your family to do. I think of the creativity of that event. That's something that she does, she loves to do, and she got another boat captain to do it. So there's actually two of them. Her husband's aunt died from Alzheimer's, her aunt died from Alzheimer's, and that's why she wants to do this.
Well, there's so many first-person connections to this as well, Mary, as you just pointed out. And I think that manifests as we look at the crowds for the Walk to End Alzheimer's and these longest day events is more and more people are having that first-degree connection to Alzheimer's. I mean, I think back 17 years, we did the first walk here in Charlottesville with you, and there was mostly people there who were advocating. But now more and more people, you can tell it because they colored flowers, more and more people are having a first-degree connection to this.
They are, and the Alzheimer's Association supports caregivers and loved ones of people who have loved ones with any form of dementia. That can be frontotemporal, that can be, vascular. There are many types of dementia. Dementia is the umbrella, and then all of the diseases fall under, and Alzheimer's is the most prevalent. But we support people dealing with any sort of dementia.
Well, there you go. Here's one for you. Have a diehard movie marathon. Watch them all the way from Die Hard all the way. I understand they're Christmas movies, so it's Christmas in June. You can have, and you can watch all the way through Live Free and Die Hard and celebrate. Because certainly you can't put on an entertainment news program without an update on how Bruce Willis is doing, and it's a reminder for those who have not gone through that first person experience of dealing with somebody who's descending into Alzheimer's. He's perfectly healthy. I mean, the pictures you see posted of him with his grandkids, I mean, it looks like he could walk onto a set and do a cameo, or he could do another Die Hard movie. But the disease, this frontal, you mentioned it in your list, is just one of those diseases that takes the you out of you.
Correct. And, there's still, as we don't like to, we say it, it's not a secret. There's still a stigma around Alzheimer's. People don't want to talk about it or any kind of dementia. So when we have celebrities, families who get involved with the cause, who talk about it publicly, that is all good, because it lets other people know they can share their story and get help.
Well, and I know Glenn Campbell's great documentary that he and his wife put together and started before he had really fallen seriously into Alzheimer's is so poignant. I'll Be Me, if you're looking for it, for something to watch there. Certainly The Iron Lady, not a documentary, but the depiction of Margaret Thatcher in this as well. Killing Reagan, Bill O'Reilly's wonderful book that he was turned into that movie. With Matheson as President Reagan also chronicles that, and Nancy's struggle with it. And that's, I'm going to bring it full circle here. Mary's like, where's he going with this? But it's that it's the caregiver who is really the jumping off point of the longest day, because every day, if I remember correctly, as you say it, is the longest day for somebody who's caregiving for somebody, because you never know when it's going to manifest. You never know how it's going to manifest. It could manifest the same way for months, and then something new is going to happen. And it's exhausting, and it's a reminder that even as community members, we can reach out and help somebody. Maybe that's your longest day fundraiser. Go out and give everyone a couple of hours that that's caregiving, so they can go to the store for a little while, because it is a tough journey to care for somebody who's descending, isn't it, Mary?
It's the hardest. It really is truly one of the hardest forms of caregiving. That brings me to something, Joe, that's happening tomorrow. It's an online program, so I know it's short notice, but we have a new program called Empowering the Caregiver. Okay. And we have a web, and you can do this in person. We'll be offering these classes in the community, but it's also an online. And tomorrow we have a webinar at 11 a.m. You can go to our website and find that to register. But you're going to hear from caregivers who are doing it, Alzheimer's Association experts. And this, of course, when you do a webinar, you've got people from all over the country on it. So these webinars, they're called Alz Talks is the series, and they're fabulous. So if anyone is interested in starting this empowering caregiver series, you can start tomorrow.
Well, I just, we redid your Chiron graphic on the screen, so now that's your web address, alz.org/CWVA, and you'll be able to find all that right there?
Yep, if you just search Alz Talks, ALZ Talks, and it'll come up that way.
Is that a series of things that that go on through the year? Because this is, I know, in person here in Central Virginia, you do a lot of group sessions and things like that. So folks can kind of get together and talk to one another. Is this just another function of that kind of community, kind of pitching in for each other?
It is. I mean, it is a webinar. So you are watching a presentation, but there is time for questions that you can ask anybody who's presenting. So it really is like you're in a room at a presentation. And we've done a lot of these Alz Talks on different subjects, and you can find all of those on YouTube and watch them anytime you'd like to watch them. So we know that, if we had an in-person series, a lot of people might be able to come to the first, but not the second or third or fourth. That's why these are all online too, because you can do them whenever you have time to get on your computer, iPad, and watch them.
That's a great, because the information is the key, not the live tune in, and I appreciate that, Mary. It's 11 o'clock tomorrow. Alz Talk is what it's called. Alz
Talks. Yep, and this one is called Becoming an Empowered Caregiver.
Oh. So powerful and important there. Mary Sandridge, alz.org/CWVA. Thank you so much, Mary, and you have a great morning.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe Thomas. Join us Saturday morning at Gypsy Hill Park for Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Stanton. Gypsy Hill Park, 10 a.m. It's not just Corvettes. Whatever your ride is, whether it's Mopar or a Mustang or even a hot hatchback, something that you drift with, come on down and show it off at Gypsy Hill Park. It's a $10 admission fee for your car. Dash plaques for the first 200 cars that join in on the celebration. There'll be music, food, and a live broadcast from me, Joe Thomas, in the morning, Gypsy Hill Park, to kick off the Memorial Day weekend with Vets for Vets to raise money for the VFW in Central Virginia. Join us there at Gypsy Hill Park starting at 10 with Joe Thomas in the morning.
Your Tuesday forecast calling for areas of fog in the morning, otherwise a sunny and nice day. We'll call it 85 for an afternoon high. Tuesday night, mostly clear and 62, mostly sunny, even warmer on Wednesday, a high of 88. Partly cloudy Wednesday night and 68. By Thursday, about a 50-50 shot at some showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, otherwise mostly sunny, a high in the upper 80s. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning, thank you. And that dissolve really is creepy to watch because it's like the cartoon head becomes the real head. And I had a meeting with accountants yesterday, and they looked at it and go, that doesn't look anything like you. It's always, ever since my daughter moved out, I need people around me that just deflate the tires a little bit sometimes. So I know you're sitting there consuming all this and saying the downtown mall stuff, that's important, Joe, and certainly laughable because this was the premise of bricking over the downtown mall in Charlottesville was to create this, and that's important. But you haven't talked about the Trump trial yet, and we will indulge you for a moment or two. Maybe three, at 434-882-4217, because the Trump trial certainly had some stunning moments in there as the jury heard from Michael Cohen about how he stole from President Trump, and of course, full-on Trump derangement syndrome going on there. Cohen testifying there, and I think most importantly, that's the look of a man who's just raking in the cash. And the poll numbers keep going up. I mean, as bizarre as it was watching Joe Biden campaign from his basement, that's a man right there who's campaigning from the defendant's table in a courtroom in New York, and the fundraising numbers have come in, and that's insane. If you look at it, well, all right, that's another story. Biden, he's got a slight lead in the fundraising, but all the way through this, Trump's monies continue to roll in during the trial. But then this one is funny. How do you get to be vice president? You cut a big check for the candidate? Is that how it works? RFK Jr. apparently sold the vice presidential slot to it. But the presidential trial, and I say this not to be intentionally salacious or controversial, but Michael Cohen, in a very, very short period of time, went from the most ardent Donald Trump supporter, his fixer, to a star witness for the prosecution against him, going on every possible media source he could find to assail this guy that a week earlier he was singing the praises of. And I'm not saying that's not possible. I mean, the expression, were you lying then or are you lying now, bears to be asked. But I have a different view on this, and I said this at the onset of the program. You and I have never had to employ a fixer, I'm fairly sure. But as I understand the business model of somebody who's going to be a fixer, and there's a lot of people who go to law school specifically to be that person who can figure out the way to use the law to protect their clients. And it's not just criminally or anything else, but to get them out of trouble if trouble should ensue, thus the Trump derangement syndrome. And I, as I've been told, Michael Collins was the George Clooney movie, certainly famously Mr. Wolf in Pulp Fiction. So we have literary and theatrical depictions of what a fixer is. But as I understand it, it is not beyond a fixer to say, hey, how about I pretend to be the star witness for the prosecution and see if I can't blow up like one of those bank bags full of blue ink on Alvin Bragg and all the folks who have pointed to this one case as the proof positive, because now you're seeing poll numbers. So we have the poll numbers. McLaughlin Group put a poll in the field, and it's got some stunning numbers in it, and I think some of it is indicative of exactly why Michael Cohen might be perhaps, and I say this just, you don't have to believe me now, but at some point. So you look at the numbers, 66% of these voters in this nationwide poll say that politics has played a role in the indictments of President Trump. Michael Cohen has, borne that out. 59% of all voters say that Joe Biden has played a role in the indictments of President Trump, making Michael Cohen's Stormy Daniels case the centerpiece, has made that inevitably clear, even to press like CNN and NBC, grudgingly. And 53% of all voters think Joe Biden really wants to stop Donald Trump from winning by putting him in jail. Only 33% that say to the pollsters that Biden doesn't want to put President Trump in jail. Most voters are angry and the rest are worried, according to this McLaughlin Group poll. Now, but you know how I am with polls. There's only one poll to me that matters when it comes to the presidential election, and it's because we use what we call the Electoral College. And it is a way, and somebody was asking me about this, it is a way that Virginia, with our 45-day ridiculous election season, and let's not forget it was based on phony science, Francis Collins admitting 6 feet didn't mean anything. So our 45-day election season based on a fraud and a con, but so why mess with success now? But it's so to blunt that if you can fraudster your way through a Virginia victory, you might not be able to do the same thing in Iowa or Illinois, or there are other ways to corrupt an election in Illinois, old school ways to do that. And so I wanted to finish off here, and we'll go back to some comments on the downtown mall as well. But I love this website. It's called 270 to Win, and 270 to Win has its election polls and its map. And we have the map that we can show everyone there. And just grab me the 270 to Win map there, and we'll fill it in for you live on TV here. So that's the map as they have it right now. The red states are obviously the ones that they believe Donald Trump is safely in the lead on. He gets a little lighter, it becomes a little bit more dodgy. The blue states are obviously the states that President Biden is leading in. But if you go, and we have their presidential election polls here as well. Can we pull those up for us for a moment here? I wanted to get the actual poll numbers because they track like Real Clear Politics does, state-by-state polls. So here we go. And as they said, Donald Trump is leading just a little bit in the nationwide polls, about 2% there. But let's look at some of these states that are in question. Arizona, Donald Trump is leading by 3.4%, and certainly is that within the margin of being able to mess that up. Sure, you could mess that up pretty easily there, but it seems relatively safe. So we're going to put Arizona, which is brown here, lightly pink. Let's go back to the polls. Nevada, they're 7% for Donald Trump in the aggregate of the last polls. That's a little redder, don't you think, there? So you see where Donald Trump is, 252 Republicans, 226 for Democratic candidate for election. Georgia. No, let's save Georgia for last. Let's go to Pennsylvania. Let's give Joe Biden some good news. Oh, I'm sorry. Most recent aggregate of Pennsylvania polls, Donald Trump is leading by almost 3% in Pennsylvania. Oh, look. We're already at 270 electoral votes for the Republican candidate for president. See, these are the polls that matter. Georgia, Donald Trump leads by 6 percentage points. Little redder. What about Michigan? Michigan was here somewhere. I know we saw Michigan somewhere. Oh, there it is. Trump is leading by 2% in Michigan. So that's a little pink there. And then Wisconsin, where Joe Biden has spent so much of his time, Joe Biden is leading by 0.2%. But we'll make it light blue there for President Biden. That's 302 Republican votes to 236. That's the poll number that needs to be remembered. And let's not forget the aggregate of the most recent Virginia polls. Virginia is 2 or 1 percentage points. The last two polls had Virginia 2 or 1%. So is that a little bit red? And all of a sudden you're at 350, and look at the color of the map. Look at the color of the map, and it starts to be more indicative. And I'm not saying Virginia is going to flip, but it is a state that, as recently as the Bush campaign, was a red state. And this is important for Virginia because there's a Senate race that will be going on. So if Donald Trump carries Virginia, what does that do to the eventual victor in the primary that's going on right now? All these candidates in the primary, voting is going on right now for Senate and House districts in the 7th and the 5th, 10th. So if Donald Trump wins Virginia, does that help Hung Cao or Jonathan Emord or Eddie Garcia or Chuck Smith become a U.S. senator? And then we're talking real change, because these are things that the pundits at places like the Center for Politics aren't thinking of. But that's the Trump. That is what's happened, and this is why. I know it's not something anyone else. I've watched the other commentary. Nobody thinks that Michael Cohen is doing this in his role as Donald Trump's fixer. Everyone just thinks Michael Cohen is a weasel, and he may be. He may be, but if you hire a fixer and say, I don't know how to undo this, we need to make all these people almost admit publicly what they're doing. Michael Cohen's doing a pretty good job of doing that. Just saying. Back to the downtown mall, couple of, hang on a second here. Gary in Berlin, New Hampshire, on the subject of the Trump derangement syndrome. Let me get to Gary in Berlin's comment on this. Beginning to look a little like apartheid. Now, Gary, you're stealing phrases from the left, but he says, with all the shenanigans revolving around the latest Trump trial, have the desperate Democrats not learned a lesson from history? Obviously, the legal persecution of Trump is having the same effect as President de Klerk's imprisonment of Nelson Mandela. Trump is becoming a martyr. Oh, well, that's what you get when you erase history. You never learn from past mistakes. So there's your thought for it. Consider, what's coming to the downtown mall. We'll try to get some of the U.S. Senate candidates to join us on this subject, because if Trump can move ahead in Virginia, what does that mean? And how is the campaign going to June 18th? The culmination of our election season in the primaries, 5th District, 6th District, 7th District, all of these importance. Can the 7th District be flipped? And if Trump wins Virginia, does that mean the 7th District goes back into the red column? And does anything get done? Does anything change? Or does it just become another 4 years of people saying, I'm not with him? Another bunch of Adam Kinzingers and Liz Cheneys. A good question for yourself to ask is perhaps you may or may not have voted. I have already. I'm already spoken for. But until tomorrow, for all of us here at Joe Thomas in the Morning, so long, and thanks for all the fish.